I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. My son walked into my kitchen and said, "Mom, I sold your house to pay for our vacation. You have one day to pack your things." I just smiled. He didn't know that the house was actually in a trust he couldn't touch, but I let him think he'd won, and what happened next destroyed his entire life. My name is Emma Sullivan, and I'm 65 years old. For 42 years, I lived in the same beautiful craftsman home on Willow Creek Drive, where I raised my son Tyler, where my late husband David and I built a life together, where every corner held memories I cherished. David passed away 7 years ago, leaving me the house, a comfortable retirement fund, and a lifetime of love to remember him by. Tyler was my only child, my pride and joy. He grew up to become a commercial real estate broker, married to Madison, a woman with expensive tastes and a social media presence that seemed to consume her entire identity. They lived in an upscale suburb about an hour away, in a house that looked perfect in photos, but was mortgaged to the hilt, as I would later discover. Our relationship had always been good, or so I thought. Tyler called regularly, visited for holidays, remembered my birthday. Madison was always polite, if a bit distant. They seemed happy, successful, living the American dream. I had no idea that behind the Instagram-perfect facade, they were drowning in debt and saw me as their life raft. It started about 8 months ago, so subtly I didn't even notice at first. Tyler began asking questions about the house, casual questions that seemed innocent enough. "Mom, this place is getting old. Have you thought about what it would cost to replace the roof? The property taxes must be insane on a house this size in this neighborhood. You're all alone here. Doesn't it feel too big, too empty?" I'd brush off his concerns with a laugh. The house was paid off, the taxes were manageable on my pension, and I liked having space for my hobbies, my garden, my book club meetings. I was perfectly content. But Tyler persisted. The visits increased. He and Madison would drop by unannounced, often when I was in the middle of something. Madison would walk through the rooms with an appraising eye, commenting on how outdated everything was, how much work the house needed, how difficult it must be for me to maintain at my age. "Eleanor, you're 65, she'd say, as if that were ancient. "This house is a burden. You should be enjoying your retirement, not worrying about maintenance and upkeep." I was 65, not 95. I still played tennis twice a week, volunteered at the local food bank, took art classes at the community college, and maintained a vegetable garden that was the envy of my neighborhood. But they talked to me like I was already 1 foot in the grave, already incapable of basic decisions. The phone calls became more aggressive. Tyler would call late at night, his voice tight with what he called concern, but felt more like pressure. "Mom, I've been doing research on senior living communities. There's this beautiful place called Meadowbrook. You'd have your own apartment, no maintenance, activities planned for you, medical staff on site." "I don't need medical staff on site, Tyler. I'm healthy." "But what if something happens? What if you fall and no one finds you for days? What if you forget to take your medication?" I didn't take any medication except a daily vitamin, but he was planting seeds of fear, making me question my own capability, my own independence. I recognize that now. At the time, I just thought he was being an overprotective son. Then came the paperwork. Tyler showed up one Saturday morning with a folder full of documents. Madison stayed in the car, which should have been my first red flag. "Mom, I had an estate attorney draw these up for you," he said, spreading papers across my dining room table. "It's important that you have everything in order: power of attorney, healthcare directive, beneficiary designations, standard stuff that everyone your age should have." The documents looked official: legal letterhead, dense paragraphs of legalese, signature lines marked with yellow tabs. Just sign here, here, and here, Tyler said, his finger moving quickly across the pages. I reached for my reading glasses. Let me read through these first. Mom, it's like 50 pages of legal jargon. I already went through everything with the attorney. It's just protecting you, making sure I can help if you need it. Don't you trust me? That question, the one designed to make you feel guilty for being cautious. How do you tell your son you want to read documents without implying you don't trust him? But something in his tone made me pause, an urgency that didn't match the situation. Tyler, if these are so important, I should take my time reviewing them. Leave them with me and I'll look them over this week. His jaw tightened. Just for a moment, I saw something flash across his face. Frustration. Anger. Then it was gone, replaced with his practiced smile. Of course, Mom, take all the time you need. I just want to make sure you're protected. He left the documents and drove away. I watched him go, then sat down and actually read every word, and what I found made my blood run cold. The power of attorney was broad and immediate. It would give Tyler complete control over my finances, my property, all of my assets. The healthcare directive gave him authority to make all medical decisions, including the power to have me declared incompetent. And buried in the stack was a quitclaim deed, transferring my house to Tyler's name. He wasn't trying to protect me, he was trying to steal everything I owned. I smiled, a small, quiet smile that made him falter for a second. Well then, I said softly, I suppose you'd better tell me more about this Meadowbrook place. Tyler looked relieved. He actually looked relieved I wasn't fighting him. It's really nice, Mom. You'll love it. Much easier than maintaining this big old house. And when did you say I need to be out? Tomorrow. The buyers are very eager, but don't worry, I hired movers. They'll be here at 2 p.m. to help you pack. That's very thoughtful of you, Tyler. He handed me a brochure for Meadowbrook Senior Living and left. As I watched him drive away, probably heading to some expensive restaurant to celebrate with Madison, I pulled out my phone and made 3 calls. The first was to Patricia Brennan, David's estate attorney and the woman who'd set up our trust. Patricia, I need your help. My son just tried to sell my house. The second was to the county clerk's office. I need to verify the ownership status of my property immediately. The third was to someone I'd hoped I'd never need to call. My former colleague from my days as a paralegal, James Crawford, who now worked in the district attorney's office investigating fraud cases. By the time Tyler's movers showed up the next day, I had everything I needed. The truth, the evidence, and a plan that would expose everything Tyler had done. Patricia arrived at my house at 8 a.m. the next morning, her briefcase full and her expression grim. Emma, I pulled the property records. The house is still in the trust, exactly as it should be. Tyler has no legal authority to sell it. So whatever he did is fraud. Either he forged documents, lied to buyers, or both. We need to document everything that happens today. We set up cameras in my living room, hidden, recording everything. Patricia positioned herself in my guest bedroom with a clear view of the front door, and we waited. At exactly 2 p.m., a moving truck pulled up. 2 men got out, checking their paperwork. I watched from my window as they approached my door. "Let them knock," Patricia whispered. "I'll handle this." The knock came. 3 sharp raps. The movers called out, "Mrs. Mitchell, we're here from Rapid Movers. Your son Michael hired us to help with your relocation." Patricia opened the door, her attorney face firmly in place. "Good afternoon. I'm Patricia Brennan, Mrs. Mitchell's legal counsel. May I see your work order?" The men exchanged confused glances. The older one handed over a clipboard. Patricia studied it carefully. This work order was placed by Michael Mitchell. However, Mr. Mitchell has no legal authority to initiate a move from this property. Mrs. Mitchell has not agreed to relocate and has not hired your services. I'm afraid you've been engaged under false pretenses. But Mr. Mitchell said his mother was moving to assisted living. He said everything was arranged. Mrs. Mitchell is not moving anywhere. I suggest you contact Mr. Mitchell to discuss payment for your time, because you won't be moving anything from this address today." The movers left, clearly annoyed, and 15 minutes later, Michael's car screeched into my driveway. He burst out, his face red with fury. Ashley was with him this time, her expression calculating and cold. They stormed up to my door. Patricia opened it before they could knock. "Mr. Mitchell, Mrs. Mitchell, I'm Patricia Brennan, representing Eleanor Mitchell. I need to inform you that any attempt to remove property from or claim ownership of this house without Mrs. Mitchell's written authorization constitutes fraud and attempted elder exploitation." "Who the hell are you?" Michael's voice shook with rage. "Mom, what is this?" I appeared in the doorway behind Patricia, feeling stronger than I had in months. "Patricia is my attorney, Michael. She's here because you tried to sell my house." "I was helping you. You can't take care of this place anymore." "That's not your decision to make," Patricia said coldly. "The house is held in a trust, with Emma Sullivan as the sole trustee. You have no legal authority to sell it, transfer it, or make any claims on it without her explicit written consent." Madison grabbed Tyler's arm, whispering urgently, but he shook her off, his composure completely shattered. "I'm your son. Everything you have should be mine anyway. You're being selfish holding on to this house when Madison and I need—" He stopped, realizing what he'd almost said. "When you need what, Tyler? Money? Money for your Bora Bora vacation?" His eyes widened. "How did you—" "I'm 65, not senile. I can still make phone calls. I can still do research." I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot, his credit card statement, showing a $52,000 payment to Paradise Resorts International. "I'm still the co-signer on your college credit card, Tyler, the one you apparently forgot about, and I can see exactly what you've been spending money you don't have." The color drained from his face. Ashley's mask cracked, her expression turning venomous. "If you loved your son, you'd help him. That house is too big for you anyway. Everyone can see that. But no, you're just a selfish old woman clinging to memories while your only child struggles." "Struggles?" I stepped forward, years of maternal patience crystallizing into something harder. "You live beyond your means. You spend money you don't have on vacations you can't afford. And when the bills come due, you decided to steal my home to pay for your lifestyle. That's not struggling, Madison. That's fraud." "We made a mistake," Tyler said, his voice cracking. "But you're my son. You're supposed to help your children. That's what mothers do." "Mothers protect their children. They teach them right from wrong. They prepare them for life. What they don't do is enable theft and fraud. Get off my property, both of you, now." Patricia handed Tyler a document. "This is a cease and desist order. You are prohibited from making any claims about Mrs. Sullivan's property, her competency, or her well-being. You are prohibited from contacting her directly. Any further communication will go through my office. Violation of this order will result in immediate legal action." They left. Tyler was shaking, Madison was in tears, and I watched them drive away feeling something I never expected to feel toward my son: relief. But the story was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. Over the next 3 days, Patricia and I built our case. We had the forged documents Michael had filed with a fake real estate company. We had the buyers, Michael's college friend and his wife, who'd agreed to pose as purchasers in exchange for a cut of the proceeds. We had text messages between Michael and Ashley, planning the whole scheme for over 8 months. But we needed to know the full extent of their fraud. Patricia called in a favor from a forensic accountant. What we discovered was worse than I had imagined. Tyler and Madison were drowning in debt. Not just normal debt, but catastrophic, life-destroying debt. $285,000 in credit card debt, a second mortgage on their house they'd hidden, medical bills from Madison's cosmetic procedures, car loans, personal loans, gambling losses. They'd been maintaining their luxury lifestyle entirely on borrowed money, and the house of cards was collapsing. The Bora Bora vacation was already paid for, non-refundable, $52,000 they didn't have. They'd been planning to steal my house, sell it for approximately $800,000, pay for their vacation, clear their debts, and leave me in a state-funded assisted living facility. And when their plan failed, they didn't stop. They escalated. 2 weeks after the confrontation, Tyler filed for emergency guardianship. He claimed I was mentally incompetent, unable to care for myself, living in unsafe conditions, and desperately needed his help. The court date was set for November 3rd, and I spent every day until then preparing for war. Patricia assembled our defense like a general preparing for battle. We had medical records showing my perfect cognitive function, bank statements showing I managed my finances flawlessly, testimonials from my tennis club, my book club, the food bank where I volunteered, the community college where I took classes. We had something else too, security camera footage, because after Tyler's first attempt, I'd installed cameras throughout my property, and I'd caught everything. Tyler and Madison driving by my house at night, taking photos, Madison calling the Adult Protective Services hotline with false reports of neglect, Tyler contacting real estate agents trying to get property valuations, claiming to have power of attorney. Every illegal action documented and timestamped. The courtroom was cold and institutional. Tyler sat with his attorney, a nervous young man who clearly hadn't expected the avalanche of evidence we'd prepared. They brought character witnesses, Tyler's boss, Madison's mother, a doctor they'd paid to give a cursory evaluation. Judge Robert Martinez reviewed the petition, his expression growing darker with each page. Finally, he looked up. "Mr. Sullivan, please present your case for why your mother requires guardianship." Tyler's attorney stood. His presentation was polished, rehearsed. He painted a picture of a lonely, elderly woman isolated in a big house, refusing help, making poor decisions. He called their witnesses. They testified that Tyler was devoted, concerned, desperate to help his mother who couldn't see she was in decline. Then it was our turn. Patricia stood, and she was magnificent. She systematically destroyed every claim Michael had made. She showed my medical records, my bank statements, testimonials from people who saw me daily, presented evidence of my active, engaged, completely competent life. Then she played the security footage. The courtroom watched Tyler and Madison stalk my property, as Tyler was caught on my doorbell camera trying to pick my lock at 2 a.m., as Madison made false reports to authorities claiming I was being neglected. "Your Honor," Patricia said, her voice cutting through the stunned silence, "this is not a concerned son trying to help his mother. This is a man who tried to steal his mother's house to pay for a vacation, and when that failed, attempted to have her declared incompetent so he could access her assets legally." She presented the financial records. Tyler's debt, the paid vacation, the fake buyers, the forged documents, everything. "Mr. Sullivan is drowning in debt of his own making," Patricia continued, "and he saw his mother's home as his salvation. When she refused to be manipulated, he decided to take by force what he couldn't obtain through manipulation." The judge called me to the stand. I walked up there with my head high, looking directly at Tyler as I passed. "Mrs. Sullivan," Judge Martinez said, "please tell the court, in your own words, why you believe your son filed this petition." I took a breath. "Because I refused to let him steal my home to pay for his vacation. Because I wouldn't be bullied into giving up my independence. Because I stood up for myself. And because he thought he could use the legal system to accomplish through guardianship what he couldn't accomplish through fraud." The judge was silent for a long moment. Then he looked at Tyler, and his expression was one of pure disgust. "Mr. Sullivan, In my 20 years on the bench, I have seen many cases of elder exploitation, but rarely have I seen one this calculated, this cruel, and this thoroughly documented. Your petition is denied. Furthermore, I am ordering you to pay all of your mother's legal fees. I am referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation, and I am issuing a restraining order. You are not to contact your mother or come within 500 feet of her property. Tyler's face crumpled. Madison burst into tears, real tears this time, of absolute defeat. Court is adjourned. I walked out of that courthouse with Patricia beside me, feeling like I'd shed 1,000 pounds. I'd won, but the consequences for Michael were just beginning. The district attorney's office moved quickly. James Crawford, my former colleague, personally handled the case. Within a week, Tyler was arrested and charged with attempted fraud, filing false documents, identity theft, and elder financial exploitation. Madison was charged as an accomplice. They both made bail, but their lives unraveled rapidly. Tyler's employer, a prestigious real estate firm, terminated him immediately. You can't work in real estate with fraud charges pending. Madison lost her social media sponsorships as the story went viral. Son tries to steal mother's house for vacation, became a headline that followed them everywhere. Their house went into foreclosure. With no income and crushing debt, they couldn't make the payments. The luxury SUVs were repossessed. Their country club membership was revoked. Friends stopped calling. Madison's mother, who'd testified for them in court, publicly disowned them. And the Bora Bora vacation they'd destroyed their lives to pay for, they couldn't get a refund. That $52,000 was gone, and they had nothing to show for it. 3 months after the court case, they took plea deals. Tyler got 2 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and was ordered to pay $75,000 in restitution for my legal fees and emotional distress. Madison got 1 year probation and community service. Both had permanent criminal records. I should have felt satisfied. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt something more complex. Grief for the son I'd thought I'd raised, relief that I'd protected myself, and a strange kind of emptiness where my child used to be. Tyler sent me a letter from his cheap apartment, written on notebook paper because he couldn't afford proper stationery anymore. Mom, I'm sorry. I know I destroyed everything. I know I hurt you in ways I can never repair. I was desperate and I made terrible choices. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know that somewhere, buried under all the greed and fear, I did love you. I just loved money more. I read it once, then filed it with all the other evidence. Maybe someday his words would mean something, but not today, not while the wounds were still fresh. Patricia helped me revise my estate plan. The house would go to charity upon my death, specifically to an organization that provides legal aid to seniors facing financial exploitation. Tyler would inherit nothing. He'd already proven what he'd do with it. I sold the house 6 months later, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Too many memories had been poisoned. I bought a beautiful condo in a secure building downtown with a doorman and 24-hour security. I used the rest to travel, to pursue hobbies, to live the life David and I had always planned, but never got to share. My book club became my real family. My tennis partners, my art class friends, the people at the food bank. They'd stood by me, testified for me, supported me through everything. I started volunteering with the organization that would eventually inherit my estate. I helped other seniors who were facing exploitation by their children. I told my story publicly in senior centers and community meetings, and every time, people came up to me afterwards with tears in their eyes, thanking me for giving them the courage to stand up to their own families. 1 year after Tyler's attempted fraud, I hosted a party in my new condo. 50 people came. Friends, volunteers, Patricia and her family, James Crawford, even Judge Martinez, who'd become a friend. We celebrated life, resilience, and the strength it takes to choose yourself over family obligation. Someone asked me if I ever regretted how things turned out with Tyler. I looked around at my beautiful home filled with people who genuinely loved me and smiled. Not for a single second. Because here's the truth. Tyler didn't just try to steal my house, he tried to steal my independence, my dignity, my right to make my own choices. He tried to convince me I was incompetent, helpless, a burden. He tried to use my love for him as a weapon against me. And I refused to let him. Tyler sent me a letter from his cheap apartment, written on notebook paper because he couldn't afford proper stationery anymore. Mom, I'm sorry. I know I destroyed everything. I know I hurt you in ways I can never repair. I was desperate and I made terrible choices. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know that somewhere, buried under all the greed and fear, I did love you. I just loved money more. I read it once, then filed it with all the other evidence. Maybe someday his words would mean something, but not today, not while the wounds were still fresh. Patricia helped me revise my estate plan. The house would go to charity upon my death, specifically to an organization that provides legal aid to seniors facing financial exploitation. Tyler would inherit nothing. He'd already proven what he'd do with it. I sold the house 6 months later, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Too many memories had been poisoned. I bought a beautiful condo in a secure building downtown with a doorman and 24-hour security. I used the rest to travel, to pursue hobbies, to live the life David and I had always planned, but never got to share. My book club became my real family. My tennis partners, my art class friends, the people at the food bank. They'd stood by me, testified for me, supported me through everything. I started volunteering with the organization that would eventually inherit my estate. I helped other seniors who were facing exploitation by their children. I told my story publicly in senior centers and community meetings, and every time people came up to me afterwards with tears in their eyes, thanking me for giving them the courage to stand up to their own families. 1 year after Tyler's attempted fraud, I hosted a party in my new condo. 50 people came. Friends, volunteers, Patricia and her family, James Crawford, even Judge Martinez, who'd become a friend. We celebrated life, resilience, and the strength it takes to choose yourself over family obligation. Someone asked me if I ever regretted how things turned out with Tyler. I looked around at my beautiful home filled with people who genuinely loved me and smiled. Not for a single second. Because here's the truth. Tyler didn't just try to steal my house, he tried to steal my independence, my dignity, my right to make my own choices. He tried to convince me I was incompetent, helpless, a burden. He tried to use my love for him as a weapon against me, and I refused to let him. Tyler sent me a letter from his cheap apartment, written on notebook paper because he couldn't afford proper stationery anymore. Mom, I'm sorry. I know I destroyed everything. I know I hurt you in ways I can never repair. I was desperate and I made terrible choices. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know that somewhere, buried under all the greed and fear, I did love you. I just loved money more. I read it once, then filed it with all the other evidence. Maybe someday his words would mean something, but not today. Not while the wounds were still fresh. Patricia helped me revise my estate plan. The house would go to charity upon my death, specifically to an organization that provides legal aid to seniors facing financial exploitation. Tyler would inherit nothing. He'd already proven what he'd do with it. I sold the house 6 months later, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Too many memories had been poisoned. I bought a beautiful condo in a secure building downtown with a doorman and 24-hour security. I used the rest to travel, to pursue hobbies, to live the life David and I had always planned but never got to share. My book club became my real family. My tennis partners, my art class friends, the people at the food bank, they'd stood by me, testified for me, supported me through everything. I started volunteering with the organization that would eventually inherit my estate. I helped other seniors who were facing exploitation by their children. I told my story publicly, in senior centers and community meetings. And every time people came up to me afterward with tears in their eyes, thanking me for giving them the courage to stand up to their own families. 1 year after Tyler's attempted fraud, I hosted a party in my new condo. 50 people came. Friends, volunteers, Patricia and her family, James Crawford, even Judge Martinez, who'd become a friend. We celebrated life, resilience, and the strength it takes to choose yourself over family obligation. Someone asked me if I ever regretted how things turned out with Tyler. I looked around at my beautiful home, filled with people who genuinely loved me, and smiled. Not for a single second. Because here's the truth. Tyler didn't just try to steal my house. He tried to steal my independence, my dignity, my right to make my own choices. He tried to convince me I was incompetent, helpless, a burden. He tried to use my love for him as a weapon against me, and I refused to let him. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Tyler and Madison eventually divorced. The stress, the shame, the poverty destroyed their marriage. Tyler moved to another state, working in sales, barely making ends meet. Madison remarried, to someone with money this time. They're living with the consequences of their choices, and I'm living my best life, on my terms, surrounded by people who love me for who I am, not what I own. So that's my story. My son tried to sell my house to pay for his vacation. He thought he could manipulate me, steal from me, and use the legal system to finish the job. Instead, he lost everything. His career, his reputation, his marriage, his mother, and his inheritance. And I gained something more valuable than any house. I gained the absolute certainty that I'm strong enough to stand up for myself, even when it means standing against my own child. What would you have done in my position? If your child tried to steal from you, would you have pressed charges? Would you have fought back? Or would you have forgiven and moved on? Leave me a comment with your thoughts. Share your own experiences. And if this story resonated with you, if you or someone you know has faced exploitation by family members, please share this video. The more people who understand the warning signs, the more seniors we can protect. Subscribe to my channel for more stories about standing up for yourself, fighting back against betrayal, and choosing your own well-being over toxic family obligations. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, you're never too old to fight for what's yours, you're never too vulnerable to defend yourself, and you're never, ever alone.